Awesome. Hey guys, this is our second meeting with Miguel. Thank you for joining us on campus today. We will be talking about your SMC experience / or student activism. All right. The first question we were going to ask you is, what do you remember of the conditions at St. Mary's that led students to mobilize for change when you were a student at SMC?
Okay, so when I came in in 72, September, and that was, the Vietnam War was still going on. Are you familiar with the draft that they used to have? Okay, so the draft was pretty basically, they would throw all the birthdays in a year in like a lottery thing, pull them out, and they'd number them, 1 to 365, and then they would take like the first 100, 200, and they'd draft them.
Yeah, it was like birthdays, right?
Yeah. In 72, when I turned 18, my number was 95. And that year, the cutoff was 95. So, I was sweating bullets right after high school, I thought. And it, probably for the wrong reasons. I mean, maybe I shouldn't have been so stressed about it. Because there were a lot of student deferments that they gave out. If you were like in college, they kind of let you slide, usually. But then I started hearing that they were going to do away with that student deferment. So came in St. Mary's, and that was the big thing still going on, a lot of protests going on. And even after the war officially ended in 75, I think the U.S. started getting out of it in 73, the end of 73. The protests continued because there was like secret bombing going on in Cambodia. I don't know if you're familiar with the whole Vietnam War thing. But even though they were pulling out of Vietnam, or intending to, they started bombing the Vietnamese, North Vietnamese, that had, what they would do is they go across the border into Cambodia with all their troops, and they just come across and fight. And different country, right? You think there's no, it wouldn't be a big deal, but the U.S. started bombing Cambodia secretly. They didn't tell anybody about it, and it finally all came out. So that was in 70, same time frame. But the other big thing that happened around that time was in Chile, down in South America. There was this guy who had been democratically elected. His name Allende was his last name. And he started, he was a socialist. And he started naturalizing, or what do you call it, when your country starts taking back the resources. He started nationalizing a lot of the important industries. Well, a lot of them were American, because the whole exploitation type thing. So they, with the CIA's help, initiated a coup. And what happened is this general, it was a military coup. This guy, Pinochet, came in, and the guy was like a brutal dictator. So that was going on. So most of the protests that I went to weren't really on campus. I don't recall a lot of stuff going on campus related to that, but there was in Berkeley. And this friend, not this friend, but his brother, older brother, who was a little bit older than me, but he was going to Berkeley at the time. And we'd go down there, me and this, in particular, this one guy named Leo Chapa. We'd borrow somebody's car and just drive into Berkeley and go to, just participate in the demonstrations, the protests, some of the sit-ins. And then we go home, we go have dinner at the Mexican restaurant, and we'd come back, and we try to encourage other people to do it, but they weren't focused on that. And really, to tell the truth, when I was here, I probably shouldn't have been doing that. I was like a pre-med when I first came in, and literally chemistry just wiped me out. I mean, I was studying like 5-6 days a week in the library, and I'd say 2 to 3 hours of that was pure chemistry. And and I couldn't get it. I mean, that was just average, you know. And at the end of that semester, I went up to the chemistry instructor and I laid it all out. I said, "What do you think?" He goes, "Maybe you better rethink your," because he said it's just going to get harder. You know, biology, physics. And even though I was pretty good in math, I was taking calculus at the same time too, and I aced that. But he said the other stuff, it just gets harder. So I took that summer off or that Christmas break and rethought it, and I came back, decided to focus on business and economics. But one of the things I did do during January term that year is there's a health clinic in Oakland. It's called the Clínica de la Raza. They cater to a lot of the Mexican community, and now it's the Latin community because there's so many people from Central America in Oakland. But they would provide like a medical center type thing, very small. One of the things they did was they contracted with UCSF dental students. They had 2 dental buses with like 4 dentist chairs inside these buses. And they would drive down, I think on Saturday morning, to the migrant camps or the schools where all these migrant camps were located, and they'd give free dental to kids. And the director of the clinic said, "Why don't you go with these people, you know, and they could use your help with interpreting, and you could learn something and so forth." So I did. So I think we went 4 times. I'd go on Friday, stay at a friend's house in Oakland, get there at 6 in the morning. We'd all drive down to Salinas or the outlying communities, Fresno, and we just park in the school with these 2 huge buses and lay it all out, and the kids would just line up. You know, and I never saw such a bad teeth in my life. I mean, these kids pretty much didn't have any hygiene going on. But my job was to, and they taught me how to be like a dental assistant, to mix those little potions to put as fillings, you know, and then how to prepare different things that they could do the extractions, and it was pretty cool, you know. And my job was to calm down the student, talk to them in Spanish if I needed to, you know, and divert them when they had to give them a shot of Novocaine. That was really cool. I really enjoyed that. And when I finished, you know, I went back to the director and I said, "I don't think I'm going to continue in pre-med, pre-dental." I said, "I don't," you know, as I explained. She said, "Well, if you're going into business, why don't you think about public administration?" I said, "Okay, I'll think about it." Anyway, besides that, the other things that were going on at that time was we were trying to fight for more diversity in the faculty. I think when I was a freshman, I had one black instructor who was the calculus guy, and there was a Christian brother who taught collegiate seminar in Spanish. He was from Mexico, and then there was 1 or 2 other instructors. There weren't very many, but none that I really took any classes in, except for calculus. So part of what the group that I was in, the Latino group that was called MECHA, that's what we're fighting for. We're trying to get the administration to continue on, you know, after the chapel sit-in, there were 10 items. I don't know if you read that document, of what they were asking for.
I think we've heard about it, but I don't think.
So one of the things was to bring in more people of color as professors, Black, Latino, Filipino, just people of color. The other thing that, looking back, okay, there was a kind of a change, I think, in a lot of students. Before, I think a lot of students were here to get their degree and go out and do something with it. but it started. I thought it was starting to change. I thought people were more starting to try to define their identity. Not so much the black people, but a lot of the Latin students, mostly Mexican, because that's what most of us were. Trying to keep our identity in the school. I mean, there was only like 4 or 5% black and Chicano students, so we were a very small number. So I think that was on a lot of kids' minds in my mind thinking back.
I kind of have a question.
Sure.
Sorry to interrupt. You mentioned like being a part of Mecha and some of the small, like not, I guess, I don't know if they're protests, but like the fight for like having more faculty diversity and the chapel sit-in. Were you a part of the chapel sit-in?
I came in the year after that.
Oh, okay.
It was in early '72. I came in September.
And like, was it still like people talking about like what it was
People
like?
were still talking about it. I mean, they were waiting for things to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I mean. There was kind of a lull. To me, there was kind of a lull. I mean, some other students might say something different.
Mm-hmm.
There was different levels of involvement in Mecha and in the BSU. But looking back in my eyes, there was kind of a, we accomplished this. Let's see.
So
what
they're kind of
happens.
waiting for it.
Yeah, but there was still, I think there was still some push with the president to, hey, get it going, make it happen, But it wasn't like a huge protest, right? Like
Yeah.
that.
Thank you.
So the other thing I think going on around that time was women started speaking up more, and they wanted more a bigger voice in things. I think Roe versus Wade was around that time, '73. But I think, what grew out of that, I think in '77, they had their first woman student body president. Her name was Mary Mejorado. She was from Sanger, California. She was a very bright person, very energetic. I mean, she was like always on caffeine highs or something. Anyway, that grew out of that, actually. But it's that women's like liberation studies and that kind of stuff. That started growing because there are more women on campus. This is like the third year of women on campus, so there are more of them on campus and a larger variety of women. And then, so through it all that, you have to remember that St. Mary's was a bubble. Probably still is now. But it was a bigger bubble because, you guys there's so much stuff to do, even though you guys are in a bubble. I mean, just walking up from the parking lot, I was going, man, it's so loud in this place.
There's a baseball,
baseball game, and I'm going.
It's its own little town. The school's its own
Yeah,
little
it
town.
is. But for us, there were like, 900, 1,000 students?
Yeah.
And so if you wanted to do anything, you had to go out to the East
Yeah,
Bay area,
yeah.
So we tended to stay on campus, but there was a lot of, we tended to stick together, okay, the Mexican students, the black students. Partly because we weren't really included in a lot of other groups, and you felt it. I mean, there was some open, but some subtle discrimination here and there. There were groups that, if you looked at them, you'd see that they were all rich white guys, And that was the other thing about St. Mary's. It was very rich. It probably still is now, but it was very rich.
Mm-hmm.
I see a lot of the buildings, and I went to school with some of those people who were their parents.
Oh.
And
It's crazy.
there was a lot of money here. So what happened is, when you come into a place, and even though it's a small place, and you don't fit in, you tend to congregate with the people that you know for support, for some kind of solidarity. You can identify them with them because they kind of went through similar things that you went through when you're growing up. But it was also, some emotional support, some mentorship. Yeah, the academic help started growing from that. I think they started the tutorial system around that time, an offshoot of the chapel sitting. That was one of the items they asked for, and that was one of the things. But I never felt I had to get tutorial help, except for chemistry. But it was so hard, and when I did get help, it didn't click.
Mm-hmm.
But for all my other subjects beyond that, I was okay. So that was what was going on. Thinking back, it's 50 years ago.
That's so cool that you went to school with people the buildings are named after. That's cool.
Yeah, like some of the townhouses, Sabate.
Sabate, oh yeah.
Sabate.
Yeah.
Sabate, is
Yeah,
everything.
I think, yeah.
We used to
I
call it
have
Sabate. There's a guy who just gave a huge amount to the school. I'm trying to think of his name. Paul Bisquetto.
Oh, yeah, and his son's the district supervisor.
Oh, really?
In San Francisco.
Bisquetto?
Yeah, he's running for District 7.
Interesting.
What's his first name?
Matthew Bisquetto.
Okay.
And he also played rugby.
What the?
Well, I think there are like 2 or 3 brothers. He had the second brother. I would be very surprised if he was successful.
Mhm.
Paul Bisquetto, I think, he was older when he came here. He was like 22, 23 as a freshman.
Yeah.
So he was a popular guy.
Yeah.
Going beer runs and stuff. But yeah, those 2 guys.
They have a statue on campus, the Bisquetto family.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Really?
They had a lot of money.
Yeah.
There's a Flippy across the
Yeah.
rec. I think one of their, I don't know if it's their kid or grandkid, still goes here. He's in the graduate program. I just know that because apparently he used to play lacrosse, and we were trying to get him on the team because we need more numbers.
Yeah.
But he was saying he was too busy with graduate work. But yeah,
Yeah, that's so cool.
I thought that was cool. Like they're connected as well still.
They let graduates play graduate.
So
They had eligibility, or
yeah, it's like 5-year eligibility. Or I'm on the club. It's a club team.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like 5 years of eligibility.
okay. Huh.
Yeah.
Speaking of, in '75, crew, right? You did crew.
Yeah.
They started the women's
The women's
crew
team.
in '75,
That's so
my
cool.
junior year.
My uncle, he was probably at the same age, I don't even know what year he graduated, but he did the men's crew. So, yeah. That's so cool though.
How'd you guys do this year?
We're doing really good actually,
Yeah.
because we're notorious for not good at all, bottom of the bottom of the bottom. But this year we've won every single race for teams we haven't beat in 20 plus years. Doing pretty good.
Nice.
Yeah.
Exciting.
So it's exciting. It's good. It's fun to watch. Yeah.
So,
Next.
next question, or do
Yeah.
you have questions on that part?
We can go to the next question. Or I guess I have kind of a side question. I don't know what year this was passed, but are you familiar with the posts around school where it's press this button if you need help, and it's the one with the blue light on the top?
Oh yeah.
Were you here? Did you hear the story behind it, or were they already here by the time?
No, that wasn't here at all.
Because from what I've heard, it was a huge women's protest to get those installed. I was wondering if you knew anything about that.
No, that was way after.
Oh, okay.
I think, there's been a lot of rapes on campus over the years, and that's something that grew out of that also. I mean, a lot of the stuff was, back then, wasn't even recorded, it's hidden away.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the points I was going to make later. So.
Okay.
Not about that specifically, but the administration's stance on a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Okay. The next question we have listed was, were those student protests at SMC connected to larger societal issues taking place during those times?
Okay, so like I said, there were some things going on in St. Mary's, but the bigger stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I already talked about Vietnam.
Mhm.
Okay, that was going on. Cambodia, I talked about that. Chile. the whole Chile thing grew. There was an instructor here on campus who was from Chile. Her name was, I forgot her name. Inez Gomez.
Okay.
I can't remember what, I know what she taught pre-Columbian history. I don't know what she taught in my freshman year. But anyway, she was from Chile, and she was an activist in the East Bay. So she raised awareness about that here on campus. So that was something that got a lot of us motivated. There was there's a restaurant in Berkeley called La Peña. You guys ever heard of it? On Shattuck. La Peña means the shade. But it's like an activist center. I mean, it's a restaurant, activist center, injustice,
Oh, that's cool.
the hot topics for a lot of immigrants. And they arranged through, you can back up a bit. Back when I was, the first few years I was here, they had like a special office, assistant dean's office for black students, and they had a counterpart for the Chicano, they call them Chicano students. And they arranged with La Peña to do like an internship at the restaurant. To maybe work at the restaurant, but also work on their campaigns out there. So there are some students that went out there for that. I think a lot of the people who were interested in social work, I think sociology was really starting to get big back then. Some people gravitated towards that. Were mainly the people who went there to get involved. Okay, the other thing that was going on that outside the area that kind of we got involved with was the farm workers boycott. They had the first boycott, with Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta, that it kind of ended in around '68 when they signed a big contract with the growers. And then things kind of calmed down for a bit. But then when the contracts were up in the early '70s, the Teamsters, the Teamsters came in, and that was like a bigger union. But the Teamsters unions was different than the farmers unions. They were more interested in numbers and that kind of stuff. And they came in and tried to take over. So there was a big to-do about that. With the contract, with the remaining contracts that the Teamsters didn't pick up, the farm workers union was trying to get the growers to re-sign or to get new contracts going. So they were getting a lot of pushback from that, from the growers, from a lot of conservatives in the whole San Joaquin Valley. So they called another great boycott, which went, I think it only went for like 3 or 4 years, from like 73 through 75 or something like that. I got involved with that, with some friends in Berkeley, in Oakland. One of the things they convinced me to do, one of the hardest things I ever did, was to go to Safeway here in town and hand out leaflets, ask people not to buy grapes.
Oh, man.
So here's this Mexican kid going up to these older ladies. I never got such pushback. I mean, the worst one was when some old lady, she must have been about 50, 60. She just looked at me and just spit in my face and just kept walking.
Oh my god.
And I was like,
Oh my god. In Malaga? Oh my gosh. That's horrible.
It's horrible.
that was, but I mean, we continued. I don't think we went back. Because it wasn't fulfilling, it wasn't satisfying putting in the work and getting nothing out of it from the community. So we decided to just focus on the community where we knew there was more openness to that kind of thing. So we went to places in Berkeley and Oakland and continued that. I know some of the students even went out to Delano, and to hook up with the Farm Workers Union and do some of their protests down there. What else? The main things going on around that time, social issues, was housing, same thing as now. Police brutality was still huge back then, especially for a lot of people who were from LA and a lot of people from Oakland, and San Francisco to an extent. Back in the 60s and 70s, the LAPD was notorious for the brutality in dealing with ethnic minorities, blacks, Mexicans, Asians. It was. I mean, did you ever hear of this writer called Joseph Wambaugh?
No.
He wrote a lot of police novels. One of them was called The Blue Knight, and it was kind of comical in a sense because he kind of made fun of him, but he kind of described a lot of the things that he did down there. And then you had all their reactions to a lot of the protests. I think I mentioned the Chicano moratorium when I was
Oh yes.
right before my junior year. My brother took
You
me.
left early and then.
We left early.
Yeah.
And had a big riot afterwards. Like tear gas and police just with their billy. It was crazy. But it was that kind of thing that was going on all the time, and they would target people in East LA and Compton, South Central. So it was a big deal here in Oakland too. So that was the kind of thing that a lot of the communities were dealing with. And then the last thing I think was, in my eyes, and also some of the two offices, the assistant dean of blacks, BSU, and the other one that they were trying to focus on is the not the dropout rate, but there's when you come to the college, like 20% of the kids drop out or transfer out.
Oh yeah, I think that's still a big thing here after their first semester or first year here.
Yeah, it was a lot higher for people of color. All of us were out financially, either through grants, scholarships, or loans. There used to be in De La Salle, when you first, from this direction, you walk in to the left, there was an office there. It was like a career office.
Oh.
Not a career office. It was like a place where you went in and they had jobs.
Career Center, yeah.
Okay, is that what it's, that's
Yeah.
still the same thing?
We have
Oh,
one.
we do have a career center.
Mhm.
Yeah, I used to actually work for the career center here. For a
So
little
I
bit.
don't know if they still have that, but we would go in there and people from the community would call in and say, hey, I need somebody
Oh,
here
That's still.
do some gardening, do some yard work, babysit,
Mhm.
clean the house, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
They still have that?
They still do it. People
Okay.
still call in,
So
post
that's-
jobs for students
We
all
used
the
to do that
time.
all the time, just to make money, because I had enough money to pay my tuition and room and board and my books.
This is side
And
money
I-
right here.
I had nothing left. And so that's what I would do. And man, some of those jobs were great, some of them sucked.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was one of the things we did in order to stay and keep going. But I don't know if they call it the rescission rate or whatever, the rate of people transferring or dropping out after the first year, but then also the rate of people who graduate is
Yeah.
lower too, and it was lower for a lot of people of color. So that's what those two offices were trying to address that through different programs. So that was something that it wasn't just happening here; it was at all other campuses too. So those were the kind of things taking place at that time. I don't know if that answers your question. Intern.
Does.
Yep. Do you wanna, oh, yeah, I can ask the next one. All right. The third question we have was, what role, if any, did you take in any of those campaigns for justice at the college? If you were a part of the campaign, what did the coordination between students on campus look like?
Okay. So that, like I said, there was
Yeah.
a lot going on, but even when there was different topics that were important to us, I'll say there was a lot of apathy on campus to anything like that. That's what I remember. I know why. I mean, those topics weren't important to them. I mean, a lot of, like I said, a lot of there was a lot of wealth in those times, and they didn't have to worry about housing, police brutality, injustice, other type of injustice, education. You know, a lot of those people, their parents just wrote the checks.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and in some cases they let us know it, that they, you know, they kind of made fun of you if you had to work on the weekends. So I think there was a lot of apathy on campus related to that. There weren't so a lot of campaigns that I participated in here on campus, but like I said, there was outside of campus, and it was very heartening to work with other people towards trying to address these different issues. And when you have these little successes, or when you put on an event and you had a good turnout, you know, that really it made you feel good. You know, it made you feel like you're part of the community. You know, and they appreciated you coming out. So let's see.
Where did you live on campus? It's kind of like off campus.
No, I lived in Justin freshman year,
Uh-huh.
and then those the first 4 townhouses behind the baseball fields.
Oh yeah.
They had just built them,
Oh cool.
so we were the first residents. I was in Thiel,
Cool, yeah.
the second floor, looking this way.
Oh dang.
We were there for a year, and then my third year, 4 of us moved off campus down to Ascot Drive.
Oh yeah.
That was wild.
Yeah.
It's still the spot.
That is so fun.
And I couldn't handle it.
Oh, no.
It was like my studies were suffering. There was too much partying, too much going on over there. I came back on campus in the spring. Lived in Aquinas.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
Uh,
That's where Juliana lives.
right. You know how they have the bridge between Aquinas and De La Salle.
Oh yeah.
So if you go from De La Salle, the room on the left.
Oh okay.
There. So
The first one.
that was the second one.
Nice.
And then my senior year, I was an RA in Thiel.
Oh, that's it. You probably got a nice room.
Yep,
Yeah.
it was great.
It's awesome.
It was great. So I don't really have a lot to say about those two, aside from what I mentioned.
Okay, so yeah, so what made like going to these campaigns important for you? Like what made you wanna I guess like be an activist for those certain things? Was it like somewhat like you mentioned how like your brother's friends would go? Did you want to tag along with them, or was it something like you personally wanted
Oh no,
to do?
I did go with. Wait, my brother's friend.
Or I'm sorry, you mentioned someone named Leo.
Leo. No, Leo was my classmate.
Oh, okay.
I had a friend. This guy who just retired. He had an older brother who was going to Cal at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd go down and meet up with him. We go to these different campaigns or protests. No, like I said, it was. You're asking if
Like what sparked you to want?
what sparked me to do that?
Yeah.
The whole gamut of injustice that I saw in the world, California, the big cities, not just to me or to people who are Mexican like me, but black students, Asian, that's the black community, Asian community. You'd see it all over the place, and I think I mentioned we had friends that lived in Watts. We'd go down and visit them all the time, and you'd see how decrepit that part of LA was. And parts of East LA were the same, but I don't think they were that bad. They were Compton, South Central. They were pretty bad. So those kind of things, and then being Catholic inspired me to serve others. My father showed me that. My brothers. Let's see what else. Just that whole idea of kind of they call it giving back now, but it was just something you did.
I feel like being on a small campus helps that too, because it's a small community, maybe. It's awesome.
And so when I came to St. Mary's, I was looking to how to continue that. I think when I was a freshman, that program had been started at this church in Oakland. It's called St. Elizabeth's, and they had a breakfast program there, and some of the students would go down there and help on like Saturdays, I think. And so I'd help out with that. We used to have Christmas parties for kids in Oakland. We'd get all these gifts and stuff. And one time we even, the Farrell Giaro Center.
Yeah.
I don't know if they still have a van for just the center.
I don't know if it's specifically just for the center, but they do have vans.
Okay.
That
So there was
they use.
there was a blue van like the color of your pants.
Oh, really?
And it said Farrell Giaro Center
Whoa.
and these
That's
kind of
cool.
Comic Sans, right? In
I
white.
haven't seen that
Back to
around.
the Future.
Yeah.
And it was kind of funny, but you could rent the van, or you could ask to borrow the van. So one time we reserved it and we drove to Oakland, picked up all these kids,
Oh.
just packed them in it's probably illegal, but we just had
Took them all.
like 15 kids and came out to St. Mary's to De La Salle, had a big party for a Christmas
That's
party.
awesome.
That's so
So
fun.
that was one thing we did a few times, but that was the last year we did that. We brought them here instead of going over there. So what else did we do? So anyway, and that still continues to now. I don't know. Do we have one more session after this, or is this the last one?
We do have another one.
What is that? What's
The title of it.
what's that about?
Let's look. Sometimes he doesn't post the
Hosting
questions
Mary's
until.
stuff?
I know it's on one of them. There's two that were sent out. I can find it though. I will find it.
Or it's
Let me see. I know I have it in here somewhere. Because for some reason he has two documents that are like named the same thing, except one of them's like updated and one's not. No. Gauge. Is this it? I can't seem to find it right now, but
Don't worry
I will
about it. Don't worry
definitely
about it.
send it in the follow-up.
it'll probably include whatever I did after St. Mary's.
I would guess that would be it.
So I can talk about that then.
Okay.
Um,
Okay, a follow-up question to like that. You mentioned how like it was very cliquey, like the Latino students and the black students would be the ones hanging out together, and then you had the preppy white kids and all that. Were there any like student injustices towards those, like towards like the Latino community or the black community from the other students?
yes. Well, like I mentioned earlier, there was a lot of subtle, sometimes overt bias or discrimination. You'd see things like the way they talked about us. They used slurs. Not openly right in our face, but you'd hear about it. I think one student, thinking back to this this kid who had the issues last year.
Yeah.
One of my friends, somebody started, there was some kind of, I don't really know the whole story. I just know that there was something going on and somebody lit his door on fire.
Whoa.
And, but it was, some of it was dumb, it was stupid, it was childish, but some of it seemed to come from people who thought they were privileged. So, I mean, there were organizations on campus that I always hesitated to join because of who I knew was in it. So there was that kind of stuff.
Got it. Thank you. Do you have any other questions on that topic before I get to the next one?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay.
Yeah.
The fourth question is, how were you feeling either witnessing the student mobilizing or being a part of the student protests on campus at the time?
Yeah, I think I already talked about most
Yeah.
of that. That's pretty much all I have.
Okay. And then the fifth question is, how did the college administration respond to the student protests? How did your families and friends respond? What about other students on campus or even faculty at SMC? What was their response to what was happening?
I didn't have a lot of respect for the college administration back then. They kind of turned a blind eye. I think they felt like they got their hands slapped when the chapel sit-in happened. In fact, so there was these two offices, for the black and Metro students. I thought he was a professor, but somebody told me he was also an administrator. He tried, and the president at that time was this guy named Brother Mel Henderson. And this guy went up after all this happened with the chapel, in the year or two afterwards, he was so upset about that whole thing happening. He tried to get that whole thing closed down. And in fact, the Metro coordinator, he had been hired in 71 for the 72 year, and he came back 72, 73, and then he was gone. And I don't really know why, he was just gone. And I think it had something to do with the administration.
Yeah.
They remember I was telling you about that woman, she's from Chile who taught here?
The professor, yes.
They named her as that associate team for the Metro students.
Mm-hmm.
And this is off the record, but she ain't the crap. And she enlightened us about Chile and about things happening in Berkeley, and hooked us in with the restaurant, cultural center. They call it La Peña Cultural Center now. She was a good source for that kind of stuff. I don't think she did a lot on campus. Personal opinion. After my junior year, they fired her.
Oh.
And maybe because she didn't do anything, or maybe we complained about it, or I don't know what the reason was. But then, so we're hoping for somebody better,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
somebody who was more excited about things that we were excited about, addressing the injustices in the world, higher education for more people, different things that were important to students, but also to our communities. They brought in a Christian brother. And that was that guy I was telling you about, Brother Camilas.
Oh.
Now, Brother Camilas grew up in East LA. But I think he told us once that his father had been deported or something like that. But he went to the Catholic school cathedral in LA that the Christian Brothers ran. And right after that, he joined the Christian Brothers. So his big deal was meditation. He had a doctorate in things in psychology, but his focus was on meditation, addressing the ills of the world. And I never really, I mean, I kept in touch with the guy, and he used to come out here, and we'd go to lunch all the time afterwards, you know, but to me, he wasn't really a mentor. He was just a guy, you know, he was there to, I thought, me and a few other students thought he was like the spy for the Christian Brothers, for the administration, you know, and all along he started doing this meditation with us, having these sessions, you know, and you're either into it or you're not, right? And I tried, you know, but it really didn't do much for me at that time. I mean, I've tried it since then. It's worked some magic with me more lately, but back then, not so much. But the younger students really hooked onto it. I think it was the seniors primarily, and a few of the juniors didn't really.
Didn't click.
But the younger students, they gravitated towards him because he used to talk like he was from East LA. He kind of tried to talk like this, the talk that they had in the gangs, you know. You know, use kind of words that they use, but you know, it was fake. To me, it was fake.
Yeah.
It was kind of funny, but I mean, students liked him, and his reputation grew from there. When he died a few years ago, they had a huge service from, if you go into the side the courtyard next to the chapel, I think there's a bench there. They just put there with a plaque.
I think I've seen.
You've seen it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was very well liked. To me, he was just a guy. And then on the other side, on the black student side, this administrator or teacher who had a voice, I don't know if he was on the board of trustees or something, he tried to get the black coordinator fired.
And he was also black, you said?
No,
No.
he was white.
Okay.
Surprisingly, Brother Mel, the president, ignored him, and he promoted from assistant to associate dean. You know, and their relationship kind of grew from that. I always wondered why this guy Tom Brown, I talked to Mike Viola. I said, you gotta contact this guy. He's got notes up the ass. I've contacted him to talk about a lot of stuff, to refresh my mind, because I forgot a lot of stuff. The guy kept notes, and I think he's trying to write a book.
Oh, that's awesome.
But he's been saying that for years. But he's a wealth of knowledge. He traveled around the U.S. Speaking about education, in particular with black students and people of color. I think he's pretty somewhat well known in higher education circles. But yeah, he and Brother Mel, they set up some kind of relationship that we didn't really know about. But through that relationship, he got a lot of stuff done. So, okay, getting back to the question. So, in my mind, students were dealing with like 4 or 5 things in general, okay? And this is me looking back. A lot of disillusionment with politics, the political world, because of what was happening in Vietnam. Nixon had just been elected in 70. No, not Nixon. Yeah, Nixon, because he's the one that supposedly ended the war. He could have ended it sooner, you know, he ended it in 73. He could have ended it in 71, 72, but he kept it going longer, so he can get reelected. He got reelected, and then the whole Watergate stuff grew from that. So there's a lot of disillusionment about the political environment. Racial and cultural inequality. That's, I think, on the minds of a lot of kids back then. Gender inequality. And institutional change or resistance to change. So let me expand on a little bit of that. So we were looking at, and this is me looking back, we maybe wouldn't have worded it like this back then, but I think we were looking at education as more as serving the communities, not just, as I mentioned, just getting a degree and getting out and start your life. You know, this was using education to better serve the communities. Not just, like I said, to get a degree, but also to preserve, I don't know what you would call it, but maybe like traditional knowledge in your communities. Because a lot of knowledge, and I think it's still the same in a lot of ways. A lot of the knowledge that we gain in school is for a lot of things is Eurocentric. You know, you don't see it from other parts of the world. You saw little pieces of it here and there, but for the most part, those were the kind of things that I thought were in our minds back then. So we're looking at hoping to push universities to serve working class, people of color, just basically local communities, you know, in the area. I wrote this down and I don't know where I got it from. Knowledge is political. So this goes along with what I was saying before, but whoever's in charge dictates what's disseminated, the knowledge you get. And that matters a lot. So we wanted to, you know, we were thinking on a grand scale, we want to get in on that, you know. We wanted a voice in the curriculum. We wanted to say on getting more professors, and not just here in St. Mary's, but I mean, it was happening at San Francisco State, happening in Berkeley. So one of the other things that I think came out of that was that we felt that education should address injustice in its many forms. You know, if you're an educated person, don't stay neutral. Don't let things happen. Go out and, you know, what is the like the ethical role of an educated person? And there's a lot later on. There was a lot of kind of discussion on that with certain professors and most of the students. So we're looking at, you know, social justice, human rights, farm workers. You know, we talked about that already. La Peña is besides being promoting working against injustice, they were also anti-fascist. So if there was ever an Antifa, that's pretty much it. But they were also they also spoke for artistic expression. I mean, a lot of murals that you see in Berkeley and in Oakland, San Francisco, were from a lot of artists that were inspired from that collective there. So that in general, you know, we're thinking education should liberate people, you know, liberate them intellectually, culturally, politically. And I was thinking about this. Well, what was the difference between the administration and what students wanted? And I boiled it down to these points. So the administration was looking at I'll call it the old model. It was like an elite, education was for the elite, top down, driven, Eurocentric, as I mentioned. It was career focused, but it was politically neutral on the surface. So the new vision that we were hoping for, community-centered education, multicultural, democratic, socially engaged, and justice-oriented. So that's how we viewed it. That's how, when we talk to our family and friends, our community, that's kind of, looking back, some of the things that I think we were focused on. And we got feedback on from the community.
I guess second part of the question that I might have missed, like how did your families, I guess your friends were people who supported you in these movements and everything, but how did your families feel about that? Like when they heard about, would you tell them like, oh, I'm going to this, I'm doing this for my community here at school?
With my family, I talked about it in general terms. When I left home, when me and my 3 older brothers left home for college or whatever, it was an escape. It's not just from the poor conditions we were living in, but for me, it was an escape from LA. You know, I liked LA growing up, but I didn't like it. I never wanted to live there. I wanted to get out. So when I used to go back to talk to my parents about stuff, and it was mostly my dad because my mom was a little bit less interested, but I didn't really tell them a lot of the protests or demonstrations that I attended, because that's not what they sent me up here for. So I wanted to make sure I didn't let them down in that respect. I wanted to finish college, and I wanted to make something of myself, but I did tell them what we did. Other things, you know, around the community, you know, like, as I mentioned, some of the activities at the church or La Peña, or even when we go into Oakland and attend festivities there. I didn't want, I don't know, I guess I didn't want to burden them about that. I mean, they had their own troubles, and I didn't want to add additional stress on top of that. But I did talk about it with my brothers a lot. I didn't, my younger brothers and sisters, like I mentioned before, they were entirely different from me and my older brothers. They didn't really go to college for more than a year or two, and they were more getting out there and working for different reasons. And they weren't interested in this. They still aren't. You know? So that's, I don't know if that answers
That answers my question. All right. Did you have any follow-ups at all either?
No, I'm like, yeah, just listening.
Got it. All right. The next question. Why do you think these stories of resistance at St. Mary's are not known? And what do you think other generations of students could learn from your experience?
So I was thinking about this all yesterday. And now I think something like the class you guys are in, I think that's great. And what you guys are doing with these oral histories are great. But I was thinking, why, to answer your question, why was that? And I came to the conclusion that most of the stuff that we did was very local. It was either just here at St. Mary's, or it was in Berkeley or Oakland. It was very localized. And so the stories, I guess you could call them fragments. They're my stories. If you talk to somebody else, like one of the other students that I'm thinking about in this, Liz Sandoval, she's with another group. She was more one of those people out there. Just, she became a lawyer, and she worked for a while. She worked in Oakland. Legal Aid Center, so she was more out there. She'll have a different story. But these are all fragmented stories. I mean, once we left St. Mary's, as what happens a lot is people just go in different directions. So the stories are there, but they're not. They're fragmented and they're forgotten. I mean, I had to really. I called several people just to talk about stuff. Hey, did we do this or did somebody else do that? You know, and that kind of stuff. You know, because I couldn't remember specifics, but I know we did stuff. So I think that's one reason. One thing. The thing about St. Mary's and other institutions is they want to promote their academic achievements. They want to promote their alumni successes. They want to promote positive traditions because they want to make the school look good. I mean, what attracted you to St. Mary's? Yeah, there was something positive about it, you know. But there was less emphasis on student occupations of the chapel or the black basketball players walking out in the middle of the game. They didn't want to promote that. There was also, they didn't want to promote the conflicts that the administration had with its students. I mean, they kept that really quiet. Just like, I was thinking back, you know, this kid that had all this crap thrown at him. The response from the administration was predictable. and that's, to me, that's what happened. They put out their little social media thing.
The video, yeah.
And haven't heard anything since. You know, there was a group of us, about 60 alumni. Well, I'll back up a little bit. When I first saw that, I was pissed. So I wrote a nasty letter to your president. And he had just shown up this year, right? Last year?
It's like a year or two. I know he was new.
Sure.
I was already here before he came, I believe.
So wrote him a nasty note saying,
What's going on?
What this bullshit?
Yeah.
You know, this is stuff we fought for.
Mm-hmm.
You know, anti-racist stuff we dealt with back then. You know, why is it? Anyway, I couldn't get his direct email at that time, so I sent it to the alumni office because I forgot why. They said they were going to forward it on. Whether they did or not.
Yeah.
Anyway, I called. We have a texting group text for some alumni that were around when I was here.
That's awesome.
And I sent it out to them. I said, you know, I sent this letter out and I sent them the link to that Channel 7
On the news,
story
yeah.
and some other links from Facebook. And I sent it all to them. I said, look what's happening. And there was like, lit up the texting. Man. People woke up all of a sudden. You know, we gotta do something, you know, and blah, 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 you know. And they said, we need to write a letter and get alumni to sign on, you know. And so they started doing that. Then they said, send us a letter you wrote. I said, well, I may not want to use this, but you can use some of the points. So they wrote this 2-page letter or something, and they sent it out, and they said, you know, send it to your friends, your other alumni. And I think we got 60, 80 people, alumni. Older alumni, not recent.
Yeah.
Sign on to it, and they sent it to them. And there's some things that came out of it. If Liz was here, she'd tell you more about that because she's at the forefront. Well, there was like a little committee that formed to actually meet with the president. I don't know if they ever did or not. So.
It's pretty impactful, when, like as a president, getting a letter from alumni because it just seems like if you're putting taxes into the
alumni
city.
count, because they have the money.
Okay.
So anyway, the other thing that the schools are less likely to promote or address is racial or political things going on. So you see the discrepancy there. Things are happening, but the school wants you to look good. So I think
They always find a way to hide it.
yeah. So I think that's addressing your question about why these stories disappeared or aren't being told. That's another reason I thought. And these protests or sit-in, those things work. I mean, you may think they don't. The school may say they don't work. But, from that chapel sit-in, there are 4 big things that are in effect now. You had like the high potential program that started, when we were here. The tutorial services was part of the office of the black students in the Metro. That's where it started. There was a better writing course. I think it's called something different now.
Quack? Is it called Quack?
It was called better writing
We have
back
a writing
then.
center.
We do have a writing
Yeah.
center.
Okay. They evolved, those 2 offices actually evolved into the advising center or advising services. I think that's still around, isn't it?
I do have an advisor, like separate from my academic advisor,
Yeah.
like a normal advisor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always reach out to my
Yeah.
advisor.
And then you have ethnic studies programs or classes, and a hell of a lot more diversity in campus.
Right.
I mean, okay, when I was here, I was trying to look this up, but there's not really a lot of good statistics. When I was here, it was like 4 or 5% black and Latino students or Mexican students. I think now there's like 35% students, Latino students, a lesser amount of black students, 10 to 15% maybe. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, like this is 13.4, but I don't know how exact this. Oh, it's 15% including black and Hispanic, correct? Yeah.
So I mean, to me that's huge.
Mhm.
I mean that they're following their Lasallian principles, that they kind of keep throwing out all the time. So those things work. These people pushing back, students pushing back to the administration for change. Those things work. But the administration doesn't want you to see it. I don't know. It's kind of, I think that's part of the reason why these things get lost. And the other thing is they become part of normal life here at St. Mary's. These 5 or 6 things but not how they started, or rather the struggle people had to go through to get them going. That's lost. So that's why I think these things get lost. And it'd be great if something like what you guys are doing and with this class and my Professor Viola, I think that's great if they can build something that people can refer to, not just alumni, but prospective students. I think that'd be great. I mean, that explains a lot of things.
Yeah, if it wasn't for this class, I don't think I would have ever heard of the basketball walkout. I never heard of that until I had this class, which was kind of interesting because it seems like it was a pretty big deal.
Yeah. And one more thing, because I remember this, thinking about this yesterday. So, and I was talking about how the college tries to paint a pretty picture, and in reality, it's something else. Was it last year? I think it was the 50th anniversary of the student walkout.
Yes.
Never heard anything in all that time about it.
Mm-hmm. That's crazy. Yeah, it took.
Why did it take 50 years?
Yeah.
I feel like that's pretty similar with St. Mary's they just try to cover up the things that are putting them in the best light. So they try to just push them, and I know a lot of people, even though it's a completely different like topic, but like that have had a lot of issues like sexual assault and stuff, and they just don't typically want to like, obviously they don't want to like broadcast that that's an issue, or they just try to like push it down. So I feel like that's a typical thing that St. Mary's does.
That's been happening since I was here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you wouldn't hear about it, but when it happened, but then you'd hear about it later.
You'd be like, yeah, and I feel like it's always through word of mouth, like through story.
Exactly.
It's never like, oh, I'm on the phone or something like this. It's always like something like this, like having to talk to someone.
Or even
about
like
it.
the school saying, hey, there was a sexual assault in Midi Hall, blah, blah, anybody have any information, or anybody see anything, or be careful, or same old advice, travel in groups, blah, blah, blah. You don't hear about that stuff when it happens.
All right, and then the last question. Do you have any advice or suggestions for St. Mary's students of this generation?
So I didn't know how to interpret your question. Are you just talking about it? Well, I took it as advice for once you leave.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I didn't know if you meant that, or if you meant advice while you're here and want to get involved with these different things. Okay. So I'll talk about.
Yeah, we can
We can do both.
We can do either one.
Well,
whatever one.
I'll lay it out, you guys.
Mhm.
My advice. I tend to nowadays write stuff down. If I hear something interesting, I write it down, so I can remember later, because my memory's going to hell. So I write these notes. Oh, this is a good saying. And every once in a while, I'll go back and look at it. And some things are dumb. But some things are kind of interesting. I remember one of the first things I ever wrote is when I started doing this in my senior year. This guy who was a Christian brother for a couple of years, and then he dropped out of the Christian brothers, but he was still going to St. Mary's. We were having when I was the RA, I had a whole bunch of people over and we were drinking beer, and I used to make dinners in there because I have a little stove in there.
Yeah.
There was a group of students from LA right above me in the hall, and I'd invite them down, and I'd cook for them, like Mexican rice, and beans, stuff that they used to have at home, and we'd talk about crap. And one time this guy came over, and one of the first sayings I wrote down was, and we're talking about how we're way up here in St. Mary's, but our homes are in LA or Texas or whatever, far away. He goes, yeah, distance is the tomb of love. I'm going, you can apply so much to that, how I took it several ways. You miss your family. You could look at it that way. For me, in my senior year, I was going out with this girl who went back to LA. And I was still enthralled, even though we broke up. And I kept reading that note, and I'm going, yeah. So anyway, I used to write stuff like that down through all these years. One that I wrote down recently was, passion gets attention, strategy gets results. So,
Wait, do you mind repeating that one more time?
sure. Passion gets attention,
Mm-hmm.
strategy gets results.
Oh, I like that.
So, you can protest all you want and make a lot of noise, but if you don't have a strategy for what you want
Mm-hmm.
to come out of it, then it's pointless.
Mm-hmm.
So just talking about what you do with stuff, you know, specifically political stuff, or I'm talking about anything you do. You know, yes, have a lot of passion for it, but know what you want to do with it. You know, have a solution. If you see an injustice, what's your solution for it? You know, think about that. Don't just go out and protest. You know, and you can take that in a lot of different ways and build on that, I think. Just related to St. Mary's, and do you guys know what the mission of St. Mary's is? You've probably seen it. I won't ask you that. It's like a mission statement. It tells you what they propose. It's kind of like the Lasallian principles.
Yeah, I had to do this assignment on it. I know. I just
Okay.
can't
Well, I mean, they talk about it a lot here, but they don't really do a lot of it. Personally, I don't know if you guys have the same opinion or not. I think they could do more. But, you know, I'm talking about using your education and your privilege to go out and help.
Oh, is it like something serve the world? I don't know.
That's a high, yeah. Enter to learn, exit to serve, or something like that.
Yeah.
But it goes on. I mean, that's just one line. But there's like 5 or 6, 7 points
Oh.
to the Lasallian principles.
Yeah.
And this kind of addresses one of them, where, you know, go out and serve your community. Engage your community, no matter what community you're in, no matter what your community is. I mean, it could be a women's group, it could be your neighborhood, it could be where you move to, it could be your work. Just engage, because as you go on and try to accomplish things, you accomplish things, you're more effective as a group or as a community than you are by yourself. So that's, it's kind of like build bridges, not walls, you know. Build across your differences. So in other words, in the corporate world, there's this whole idea of being siloed, where you have a job to do, you do your job, you don't engage with anybody else, because you just got to do your job. And they call those people who work in silos, and try to stay away from that. Not just talking about whatever job you're in, but no matter what you do, whether it's about your identity, whether it's about your major, or what you believe in life, different ideologies. You know, don't build a wall around yourself. Go out and engage other people, and that goes along with, you know, multiple groups accomplish more than singular groups. You know, just whatever you do in your life, be proactive about it. Take charge of your own life, whether it's your career, your continued learning. You know, if you continue going to school after you leave here, even if when you start, you know, I kept going to school. I got my master's here about 17 years afterwards. Because it was, I needed it to get ahead. And I needed it just to go back and relearn a lot of stuff I learned and then expand on it. Okay, and it makes you, it expands your view of the world. And also take ownership of your relationships. Be proactive with that. The last two, maybe it's not the last two. Okay. So I already said keep learning, but stay curious. Continue thinking critically. I think a lot of people in the outside world, they get into their careers and they get into their family lives, and their critical thinking stops, or it is very limited. You know, try to keep a broad focus on critical thinking. I think that's just advice. Stay flexible and adaptable. I started off with Pacific Telephone. Pacific Telephone was bought by Southwestern Bell. And then they grew into a big conglomerate, and they bought AT&T, and then they renamed themselves AT&T. So that's where AT&T is now. So I was with them for 42 years, but I had somewhere between 15 and 20 jobs with them. And I started as what they call an outside plant engineer. If you go older part of towns, you see telephone cables going up and down, you know, telephone poles, stuff like that. I used to design that stuff. When I first started with them, there was a huge boom in housing in Northern California, and they couldn't meet the demand. So they were hiring people left and right to address that issue. They even brought people from LA to go work up here. And one of my jobs was in Fairfield, Vacaville, all the way up to Woodland, Dixon, and even the smaller towns apart. I would go up there, people would be building homes in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And I'd have to figure out where telephone facilities were. And I used to tell them, if you want us to provide you service, this is what you have to do. You know, some people had trailers. I mean, or, you know, campers on the back of a pickup, and they just dump it, and that was their home.
Yeah.
And I used to tell them, oh, okay, you know, we know you can move this,
Yeah.
so we're not gonna hook you up directly to your camper, so you need to put a structure, you know, specifications. And, I mean, there were just thousands of orders like that. And that was when I first started, that was my primary job. And then I moved into what they call a route engineer, where I managed the whole town. We had a certain number of facilities, and, you know, as growth happened here and there, you had to send your cables out in that direction and plan ahead. And so that was a pretty neat job, but the problem was I was in Fairfield. So Fairfield back then, it was an office of like 30 engineers. There was one black woman, one Filipino woman, and one white woman. Everybody else was white. And I was thrown into this. Actually, I think I was, my friend who graduated from St. Mary's 2 years before, he was up there. So I said, oh cool, it'll be 2 of us. 2 months after I got there, he transferred.
Oh no.
So I was there by myself, and it was weird. It was like, I wouldn't say it was like St. Mary's, but it was a working class, white working class group. A lot of those guys were guys who came up from actually doing the work of splicing cables, or the installers climbing on ladders to, they worked their way up into as an engineer. So those guys were hard-nosed guys. There was one guy from USF. I don't know if you know, but back then USF was our biggest rival in like basketball. This guy hated St. Mary's. And that guy
It's
came
weird to like hold that on
God.
after graduation. Like I can't imagine myself doing that.
It was. Those were 3 of the worst years of my life.
Oh no.
I was talking to that guy who was associate dean for the black students. His name is Tom Brown. I was talking to him this year, and I said, we were talking about different things. I mentioned that there was no career counseling really when I was here. I think they had a one night where they had a bunch of alumni from different fields come in.
Oh.
But they talked in a big group,
Yeah.
and that was it. I remember going to it. The only one I could make was the accounting one. And I just wanted, because I couldn't get to it, so I was going to go. And right when I was going to walk in the door, I saw this other guy coming up, this alumni. He goes, "Hey, what are you doing?" I said, "Oh, I was going to go in here." The guy looks in there, he looks at the sign, accounting. He goes, "You don't want to be an accountant. They're boring." And there used to be a cafe in De La Salle.
Oh,
It was called the Brick Pile.
Oh,
That
cool.
was before they had.
yeah, I wish
they
they
had.
Cafe
had that
Louis.
stuff,
Yeah.
And it was like a diner.
Oh, really? In
Like
De
a
La
fast
Salle?
food, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Right, when you first walk in, the office is on the right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That whole area was the
Oh,
that's
dang.
cafe.
That's so cool.
And it was
Should've
open
kept it.
late at night and stuff. He took me down there, and we sat for 2 hours. He was a small business owner, him and his brother. Kind of like, not a bank, but what should I say? They were like an private investment group. They gathered money from different investors. They loaned money out. So it was like a private equity. And he talked to me in general about stuff. He goes, open your focus, man. Broaden your outlook in life. Don't be an accountant. So it changed
Did it
my
work?
mind. It worked. So I got, that's why I decided to go into business and economics. So there was an alumni who lived behind the campus. His name was Bernie Valdez. He worked for Pac Bell. And he decided, I don't know if it was early 70s, late 60s, that he convinced the higher ups at Pac Bell to get more people of color, bring them in, college grads. Convinced them. They said okay. So he came out here to that those two offices. Hey, I'd like to recruit. They said sure. So I met with him. It was kind of funny. I was a senior, right? I had my graduation suit. It was, back then it was all psychedelic colors and weird, odd coloring schemes.
Yeah.
I had a rust-colored suit
Whoa.
and kind of an orangey shirt
Yeah.
and kind of a paisley bright tie, because that's the way everybody had it. I walked into this. It was a three-piece suit. I walked into the interview with him. It was and we sat there and talked, and I told him, hey, yeah, I'm an RA, leader, played rugby, with blah, blah, blah. I was one of the leaders on my soccer team, I was telling him everything I did. He goes, oh, wow, that's great. So the guy hired me. My best friend Leo, who I used to go to Cal with all the time, he showed up in a t-shirt.
Oh, no. Not a good
He ain't
look.
get shit. But yeah, I don't know. Leo was kind of a disappointment.
Oh.
He went back after graduating. He was a student body president of his high school.
Oh.
He went back and started working for a can company on the production line. I went back to see him once and I go, you're throwing away your life. Anyway, so yeah, he hired me in what they call guided management development. What I didn't know was, it seemed like almost every other year, Pac Bell would come up with a new management type of development program, bringing the college students, high potential graduates, bring them into management, directly into management, not into the craft, the union side, and expect big things, What I found out later was there had been several attempts, even after I got in, to do the same thing. They fell through every time. So they were telling me it's a 3-year program. We want you to be like a director in 3 years. I said, cool, let's do it. But then they sent me to Fairfield. And it was like, I was held down. They gave me the crappy work for like 2 years. And then when they finally gave me a route to manage, which is, I had more, what do you call it? I controlled my own area, so I had more leeway in doing a lot of stuff. I really started growing as a manager. I even managed, I had all the clerical people there. So I thought I got out of my little trap that I was in, and I was, that program died. Never contacted again. So, okay, so I'll tell you, from there, I came back to San Francisco in finance, in their expense side. Did a lot of work there. And then I taught myself how to program, a couple of programs. These are like 5th generation languages, which 5th generation mainframe languages. One was called Focus. I don't think it's around anymore. Might be. And the other was, they entrusted me with developing a new system to measure units, like how many access lines there are, how many toll lines there are, how many connections there are in the big office, how many transfers happened. So all that information was there, but and the data was there, but they had no system to manage it. Okay, back then everything was written in COBOL and Fortran, and I don't know if you had any dealings with that, but cards that you had to get punched in on feed it into a computer.
Yeah.
And if you made a mistake, you got to redo the whole thing. It was that kind of world, right? So 5th generation language was actually communicating online, writing a program, and get data out of it. Okay, so I taught myself that. And one of the, like I said, systems that they wanted me to build was this thing to count units. So they said, first you got to decide what program to use, what language to use. So there's a toss-up between Focus and this new one. They call it CPL Tactics. And CPL Tactics won by a long shot, and I chose them. Only problem was I was the only guy who knew it. But it was kind of a job security in a way.
Yeah.
But I mean, that opened my eyes to what was coming in the world. Shortly after, we got our first IBM computer. It was with 2 disk drives, floppy disk drives. Nobody knew how to turn it on. And even if you turn it on, nothing would happen because you needed a floppy disk operating system. So it was like, I learned how to do it, okay? And my group was, like I said, was related to expense. It grew into a bigger group, and I learned other stuff. Taught myself Pascal, Basic. I wrote small programs for the PC. I delved into PCs a lot back then. I kind of managed the PCs for our whole division, so that was an interesting time. But then that got old, and then I moved over to forecasting, where they would predict how big a city's growing. 1 to 3 to 15 years. And so I had a whole group with that, but they needed somebody to manage the data. So I did that. That was the most fun I ever had. It was like, programming was so cool, People would come to me and goes, how do you do this? Just leave it here.
That's awesome.
So it was really cool, really cool. And then I went into revenue forecasting, where I would forecast revenue for the company at a very high level, very high. And then I almost lost my job. They were going to lay me off.
No.
Soon after that, and there were no jobs. They said, we'll give you 90 days to find another job in the company. And, Pac Bell's big. There were no jobs because they were cutting back everywhere. And finally, I found the job, but I had to take a half step back at my level, and I was going, crap. But they said, but we'll keep your pay the same, but you don't have as much sway. I said, all right. I can always rebuild myself, you know. So I was kind of despondent. I was moving to a new group, and they seemed kind of boring, you know. But I already had I don't know if I had 2 kids or 1. I had to keep my job, and I was looking outside. I was thinking about becoming a financial what do you call those people? Financial planner.
Oh, yeah.
Trying to work for Schwab. Fisher, and one other company we did interviews with. So I was kind of despondent because nobody was calling me back. And finally, I was walking back to my desk from the cafeteria, and an old friend popped up and said, "What are you doing, man?" I said, "Oh, this and that, you know." And he says, "Hey, come and work for me."
Oh my God.
I said, "Sure." So it was like the second to the last day of my 90-day period. And I was supposed to go in on the 90th day to sign the paper for the crappy job.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
This guy says, "Come and work for me. Our boss is in LA. You don't have to worry about oversight. People look over your shoulder. I'll be your boss, and I'm cool." He was a Mormon guy, but he was fun. I never knew a Mormon who liked to drink and drink coffee.
Oh, he was fine with that.
He was a really fun guy. Somehow he managed to get me extended for 1 day. It had to be a letter from like one of the executive vice presidents. And so they extended me by 1 day, and I signed the paperwork. So that was a lot more like, I guess, the start of what's now called data mining. You know, AT&T had these huge systems, and how they make money is their salespeople selling to business.
Yeah.
And you got to pay the salespeople, and they have so many different ways to pay them. Whether it's a big company, small company, how much traffic you drive in. They have all these incentives. So they have all this money coming in, and they were having a hard time keeping up paying these people. So my job was to go out and find the missing stuff in these huge systems. And oh man, that was lovely. And then I built another system for our group to use. Instead of me going out and pulling all this data together, I started getting feeds, these massive feeds, and we built this system where did all this data dump. And I built the front end to go out and extract it easily, kind of like what you'd see on the internet now. You go in and you order something online, like in Amazon, or a company, you're buying stuff, and all these screens pop up, you know, put your name, address, your credit card. I would put in, you know, who the person was, what company is, all these like 20 different options for our group to go in and find this stuff. So anyway, that's, and then the last job I got was, I became a project manager for IT. And that involved, IBM did a lot of programming for us in the high end, but IBM outsourced it to India. And they had people in England, South Africa, and Brazil. And so when an IT group, which had a system, needed an upgrade, they would design it. And they'd come to me and said, "We need a project manager." So I had to, pretty much from the get-go, you get the high-end requirements, and you lead a group of people, you build detailed requirements, and then I was the guy in charge of every step. Not overseeing people to do it, just managing that everything gets done in a certain order and on time. And so that meant dealing with people in India. So they're like, 10, 12 hours ahead. So sometimes I'd have calls like at 6, 7 o'clock at night at home. You know, I'd go at home and have it there. Or I'd come in really early, like at 4 or 5, so that I'd get them when they were going home. And we'd have these big calls. I mean, and it was really hard because they speak English in India, one of the main languages, but they have big accents.
Yeah.
And I could not understand them a lot when I first got on these calls. But there's one of my counterparts in New Jersey. She'd been dealing with them for like 6-7 years. I would kept not texting her, but sending her messages saying, "What did he say?" And she had an ear for it after that long a time. And sure enough, after like 2 or 3 years, picked it up.
Oh, that's good.
I mean, anyway, that was fun for like 5 years, and it was terrible for like 3 or 4, and then I quit.
Oh,
I quit because I was tired of
that's awesome.
it. So
It's cool that you got to connect with people from
back
different
to
parts
my
of the
last
world.
point:
Yeah.
stay flexible.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I mean, and adapt.
Mm-hmm.
Because no matter what field you go in, at some point you're gonna come to a crossroads where you have to say to yourself, "I need to change," or "I have to leave because they're laying me off,"
Yeah.
or "I want to do something different." You know, that's my advice on a high level. And there was one more. I promise I won't take up too much time.
No, you're good.
No, and I talked about this already. Use the tools that you have now.
Mhm.
You know, like social media or network type stuff. You guys can get at data a lot easier now, and those kind of tools. But don't ignore the what do you call it? Like the face-to-face interaction, the human-to-human type thing. I think that's really critical. That builds a lot of trust. Yeah. That's
That's good advice. Thank you.
Thank you.
probably stuff your parents tell you.
No, it's so nice to hear from somebody else though, because
Yeah.
when you hear from the same person all the time, you're like, okay. Pay
It's
attention to your
different perspective. And,
yeah.
yeah.
The flexible one's important. I feel like I have a hard
agree.
time with being flexible sometimes. Like I would like to be like in charge of what I like, about the boss, kind of what I want to
Yeah.
do with my life. So it's hard for me sometimes to like, not necessarily like in like groups, but just like when something goes wrong in my life, I'm like, I feel like my life ended, or like there's no coming back from it, and I'm like, oh, I'm like ruined. But it's just me being dramatic, and obviously I can adapt eventually, but that's not my first instinct. So definitely something I can work on.
One thing that a lot of people in I've always been in the corporate world, so I'll speak to that, have trouble with is control. People want power the higher up they go, but if you let the control go out to your minions, and people that work for you, that it builds them up, and consequently you're built up, in different ways. So yeah, don't lose that face-to-face stuff, that human-to-human thing.
It's important. Very important. Dang.
Anything else?
I think that wraps us up for today. I think that's all from me.
Yeah.
What do you guys? You're gonna be an engineer?
Yeah, so you were actually talking about like project management and all that stuff. So I'm going into civil engineering, and I kind of do plan like later in my future becoming like a senior management role. So I thought that was really cool that you shared that.
You're going into education.
Yeah, I think so. I'm gonna do my student teaching next year, just to have it under my belt. But I'm not sure if that's something I want to pursue for long term. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, if you like money.
Yeah, I like money, and I like the ability of like the summers off and the breaks off, and like have only working like 7 a.m. to 3. But the money is an issue for me, and I think like
It isn't really 7 a.m. to 3.
it's no, it's more.
You'll be there.
Yeah.
You'll be working.
But like technically, you could go home. But like, I think I'm gonna pursue more like medical sales, or like something in sales, because I like love talking to people, and that you make a lot of money. I feel like
Sales.
sales. But then on the flip side, it's like you can make a lot of money, or you also like you can't.
You have to be good at it.
You have to be good at it. Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see.
I was just thinking about this. Back when I was at school, the big thing was, as I was saying, go back to your community. And a lot of people wanted to do that. They want to become teachers, social workers, a lot of things similar to that. I didn't want to do that. I took a class, a lot of business classes, and what I saw is the problem with the rich people, the poor people, is the middle class. If you have a strong middle class, there's a lot of movement between all three. Less so in Latino communities, Black communities. There is now, but back then there was less of a middle class. And one thing I learned, and that's one of the things I learned, is you gotta build up the middle class. I didn't think becoming a teacher or a social worker or those type of jobs was the middle class. I thought those were lower end jobs. And so I never subscribed to that. And I was always focused on that. And I always talked about that with people that I met. You gotta get people interested in corporate type jobs that pay well, or not necessarily corporate jobs, but just jobs that pay well, whether they're lawyers, doctors, whatever. And you gotta build up that middle class so that people on the bottom can grab onto your ankles and pull themselves up, and then those people can, and that way you have more, like societies in the U.S., you have more movement, and people aren't stuck in the lower class. So that didn't sit well with a lot of people. But here we are.
Yeah.
I wasn't as successful as I thought I would be. I think I'm middle class. In fact, I know I am. A lot of the people that I went to school with, I don't think are. They're lower middle class. Some of them are poor. My roommate.
It's hard. Yeah.
My roommate in Justin was this Filipino guy who was a tennis player. He made that his career.
Oh really?
He's 71. He'll turn 72 in June, like me. He's still teaching tennis.
Oh.
Not because, he likes to do it,
Yeah, I was gonna say he does love it.
but he has to do it.
Oh.
He doesn't really have a retirement program. He's had a lot of money troubles,
It's hard.
but you can't really make it as a tennis unless you're
Pro.
teaching at a pro,
tennis
that
player.
kind
Yeah.
of stuff. And he did that for a while, but he made bad decisions.
Yeah.
Somebody talked him into going to Fresno and being a partner at this tennis and golf club. And he said, "Hey, that sounds exciting. Great way to grow a business and stuff." He never signed any papers making him a partner.
Oh.
So after a couple of years, he went up to the guy and said, "Hey, can we start talking about this partnership?" The guy says, "Oh, I can't right now, blah, blah, blah.
Oh.
Reason this, reason that." He moved back to Oakland.
Dang.
And he bought are you guys familiar with Fresno?
A little bit.
There's like a main street in the older part of town.
Okay.
Is it International?
I don't know any specific names. I've been there like a handful of
Okay.
times. But
There's a
I
lot
don't
of old homes.
Mhm.
He bought one of those. He couldn't sell it.
Oh no.
I forgot when this was. But, so he had that home. He had a home that he had rented out in Oakland when he moved to Fresno. And then when they moved back, they couldn't get back in there because I think they had a lease. So they got another home in Alameda. So at one point, he had it all planned out, it was all going to work out. He had 3 mortgages at one time.
Oh.
And I don't know how he did it.
Stressful, though. Yeah. that's
As it's just a tennis coach.
Yeah.
Interesting.
His wife was, another story. His wife, that's how I met my wife, actually.
Oh, yeah.
His wife got married She was an opera singer.
Oh.
Young. Studied at Sonoma State. So when they got married, she had some of her friends sing at her wedding, and it was down in Oakland. What's that park there? Joaquin Miller Park or something like that. Okay, they have a big house or something. And so I was out by the cake. So apparently my wife sang at the wedding. But I didn't know. Anyway, later on, this girl, she tried to set me up with a couple of her friends, and it didn't work out.
Never, yeah, never.
And then she says, well, there's this one friend, but she's kind of young. She's like 7 years younger. And I said, yeah. So we all went up to Sonoma, one wine tasting, and my wife was working, and she met us afterwards at a restaurant. Oh man, we fell in love. I was like, but she was an opera singer too.
Okay.
And, I mean, it's local. I mean, they for the small opera companies around town.
Yeah.
When she could no longer sing, she became a voice teacher.
Oh.
And she's still doing it.
That's
She loves it.
Nice.
She loves it. She thinks we need the money, but we don't need the money.
Well, it's good that she's doing something.
Something
that makes
she
her happy.
likes, yeah.
She loves it. I had my daughter had my daughter is gay. They got married like 2 years ago. They had a son about a year and a half ago. They got married a year before that, but they had a son, and they live in Baltimore,
Oh, wow.
which is unfortunate. Anyway, they come out twice a year, or my daughter does, and we go down once or twice. So the last time they came down, my wife bought a little children's book, and it's the kind where you open it up and music comes out.
Oh, yeah.
But it was in this one. It was opera, women singing opera. And it's popular tunes you've heard. Like the Queen of the Night, and that bird song you hear in car commercials. And this kid, at first he wasn't interested as a male. But then my daughter, she's always sending us texts of like photos or videos. He had woken up, and the kid wakes up early,
Yeah.
Sometimes he just lays there, other times he's just screaming like crazy.
Yeah.
But they have a camera on him, videoing him, just to see what's going on. So he woke up at like 6 in the morning, and they heard this music playing, and they go, "What the hell's that?" They pull out the screen, and he's opening this and just listening to the music.
No, you must probably love that.
That's pretty cool. My wife was going, "Oh!"
That's so sweet.
I said, "Nah, he looks more like a rugby player."
They do both. We have a rugby player here that's star of the play, the musical play, and he's on the rugby team.
Oh,
So maybe
really?
you could do both. Yeah. Uncommon, but you could do both.
My daughter and her partner say, "Oh no, he's going to be a dancer." I said, "Man, he looks a little chunky to me."
Looks a little big.
I don't think so.
Oh, that's so funny. Well, thanks for coming.
Thank you. Yeah.
I think next time we should probably try to book the media room and figure out. I'm not really sure what happened. That was kind of
Yeah.
odd.
We'll talk to our professor about, because I don't know if he didn't know that they weren't gonna help us. Because the guy said he was like, I'll have the recording.